Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding. I'll start this off very explain like I'm 5. So many people know Islam, but very few people know Sufism. Sufism is the mystic school of Islam. Mystic simply means becoming one with God. Each major religion has a mystic branch. We've been speaking about that quite a bit on the show. Look at the mystic branches of the planetary religious traditions. Immerse yourself in their teachings and become one with God. So, Wahdat al-Wujud, to me, for so long, meant the unity of being and existence, God. And to many scholars that have been studying Sufism and this very profound saying in the Sufi metaphysics, Wahdat al-Wujud, means something even deeper and more profound than this. Okay. So again, this is absolute oneness. This is creation is not separate of the absolute. God and creation are one. I and my Father are one. John 10:30. Okay, so what is it that is more deep and more profound about Wahdat al-Wujud than the unity of being in existence? It's this. Wahdat al-Wujud, and this is thanks so much to the Ibn Arabi Society and William Chittick's work in his long effort-filled periods of aiming to explain what wujud means. He writes that it's the unity of all finding. And I have this link in the bio for you to look at as well. You can see here on the IbnArabiSociety.org page William Chittick's writing. And what I have highlighted there, you can see wujud means literally finding and to be found. Okay, so why do I find this to be so profound? Well, what went from a couple days ago for me, which was a Wahdat al-Wujud meant pretty much as a saying a very similar oneness that all of the other mystic traditions talk about. So I thought, and this is a big part of the word hermeneutics, which means interpretations of these mystic spiritual traditions. Because until somebody like William writes the translation of wujud and the interpretation of it as finding, I never, ever encountered this. And I wonder how many other people have never encountered this, but are familiar with the Sufi metaphysics and are familiar with Wahdat al-Wujud. Because the unity of all being and existence means oneness, means God, absolute oneness. It's a common perennial wisdom from the spiritual mystic traditions. But when you change wujud to mean finding, when I was first, a couple days ago, reading this, what happened to me was so fascinating. I've never felt this before. My entire nervous system went into shock. I began gasping for breath. It was very loud. It was like it was like that. And I curled over into the fetal position and I began crying and slowly augmenting my perception, my conceptual frameworks to the next level. I literally leveled up as a character. And it was a very clear and profound leveling up. I was in complete awe and shock. My whole body was in complete shock. And it went on for 10 minutes. And then further throughout the day, I continued the process of having these flashbacks to this most profound revelation and leveling up that I had went through. Okay. So, how did I augment my frameworks, my understanding of reality and who we are and why we're here to such a degree that this happened? Okay, I will explain that now. As you may know, I've been very adamant about how our traumas are our greatest treasures, and that we must share the wisdoms that we've learned with the world, and how the lotus flower, it grows out of muddy waters, and how diamonds form under intense pressure and temperature. And it's a very strong analogy for humans. We ourselves are diamonds that form under intense temperature and pressure. And we make a diamond cameo of sorts. And I've tried to, I'll show you a small visualization here in a moment. But so what Wahdat al-Wujud means is the sum of all unveiling and finding. I'm sorry. It's beautiful, but holy cow, it's coming again. So, and I'm sharing it. I'm sharing this revelation, this leveling up with the world here, and it's beautiful. Okay. So, that means the sum of all unveiling and finding. So every single one of us undergoing our own unique process of slowly piercing the veil of who we truly are and finding the truth. And I already can feel that there's going to be an amount of people that watch that very quickly think about it and get it. Thinking about something like all 8 billion people on the planet undergoing their own unique process of communion, their own unique process of unveiling and finding. And that entire summation of all of the phenomenology and all of the qualia, some people are going to get that right away. And other people won't. And that's okay, because you will likely come back to this video in a year, or you might come back to this video in 2 years. And what's going to happen is, down the line when you come back to this video, you will understand this. It has happened to me over and over again, where I watched a piece of content from 2 years ago and thought that I understood it. And then I came back to it this year, watched it again, and my mind was blown. Okay. So, I'm going to aim to visually share this with you as well. There's a very special way of understanding this. Junayd has this quote: "The water takes on the color of the cup." That very deeply resonates with how that oneness, that infinite, one infinite creator expressing itself, takes on the color of all of these different cups, all of these different creations, all of these different unique individual expressions within the creation. And that it also means that the Divine Epiphany is received in limitless combinations, and it's colored by that person's nature. So that means, again, this idea of the each unique sentient agent, each unique conscious agent undergoes their own unique unveiling and finding of a union, a yoga, with the one infinite creator. And it's going to be colored by that person's nature. I'm going to have a different one than someone else that's born in a different country, in a different culture, who's a different age, that's had a different familial lineage that's led them to where they're at today. And I love this phrase, the Divine Epiphany, because that is what it is. It's the divine epiphany of the understanding of our true nature, who we are, why we're here. And it's received in these limitless combinations, and that's why the phrase Wahdat al-Wujud is so profound, because it's the summation of all of the limitless combinations of unveiling and finding. How fucking profound is that? It's not just your own, it's not just oneness. First of all, it's not just oneness, which is what we think the term means. Oneness. Oneness of being, oneness of existence. It's a very common theme from the perennial spiritual traditions. So you just use the word like you use it from all the other traditions. But now that you know that wujud means finding, now that you know it's the summation of all unveiling and finding, now it's profoundly different. The hermeneutic, the interpretation of the profound spiritual saying Wahdat al-Wujud has taken on a completely different concept in your soul. It makes me wonder of all of the unique unions that are happening across the world. All of the unique unions, every single one of these unique humans, each one is a unique conscious agent that is having their own process of their sentience, unveiling and finding the true nature of their reality, the true nature of the self, the true nature of that one infinite creator. And that's so profound. Okay. All right. So I promised I was going to give you some little bit of a visual to understand this as well. So this brings a whole new meaning to my design for Chapter 9 on consciousness. So as many of you know, I published High Level Perception, a visual synthesis on the nature of reality, synthesizing science and spirituality, and meeting basic needs, maximizing human potential. And what I did was in Chapter 9 on consciousness, I specifically made this visual in my aim to attempt to create a hypothesis of what I thought consciousness could be interpreted as, especially given an aim to synthesize it with science, with physicalism. And especially in this case, you see that I'm even adding an integral sign, which is borrowed from calculus in this case, which means the summation of infinitesimal data. So in this case, we're summing all of the phenomenologies, all of the sentience, all of the qualia from all of the conscious agents on the planet, which is that 0 to 8 billion. And those are each like nerve endings of the one infinite creator, which is like this brain that you see here. And so what this means is that we're slowly moving what I think from this, and I didn't mention, for those that don't know this, I also explain the derivation or the differentiation or the individuation as well. So where the integral in the calculus of consciousness is the 99.9% genetic similarity on a DNA level between all humans, the 0.1% genetic difference is the individuation. So that's the unique gift that people are bringing into the world. People are contributing different in the symphony, in the integration, in the ocean, in the oneness. People are unique solos. They are playing unique melodies. They are playing unique instruments in that. And so that's your unique gift, your unique North Star that you contribute. That's a very self-actualization. That's that derivation versus the self-realization is the integration. Okay. So now what Wahdat al-Wujud does to this is it takes it to the next level. And so it would look something like this. So I haven't hashed this out completely yet, but I wanted to at least give you an idea of what I was beginning to represent it as. So as you can see up there, right here specifically, you see that same style earth, but now instead of seeing the nerve endings, it's like nerve endings that are also ascending and becoming diamonds. So now I want you to visualize 8 billion humans that are ascending and becoming diamonds, that are having their diamond cameos. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding. 8 billion people finding, and those being like diamonds, and the summation of all of that. And so this is very much, I wrote this a little bit up here, the diamond is the cosmic force, and this is very similar to the term prana, which means breath or life force, or chit agni chit tapas, which means consciousness force. So that's just the beginning of aiming to artistically explain what I believe Wahdat al-Wujud truly means by the unity of all finding. So, again, when I had this conceptual visualization of the 8 billion humans on the planet that were undergoing phenomenology of sorts. And I knew that they were undergoing some sort of yoga union. But Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding, when I read this, it made it very clear the role that finding has in the creation, where the 8 billion conscious agents are undergoing a process of piercing the veil, of finding what the true self is. And there's a beautiful unfolding that happens of each sentient agent undergoing their own unique process of that self-realization of one infinite creator and self-actualization of a unique contributory gift, and becoming a very clear channel, a clear vessel for that contributory gift through that cosmic life force that's unfolding. But we usually clog up that channel in so many ways based on our process of not actually having undergone self-realization. So it brought a whole new meaning, because I actually visualized for the first time ever, I visualized all 8 billion sentient agents on the planet undergoing a diamond style ascension. All, if you can imagine, 8 billion diamonds currently forming on the planet. That's what I got from Wahdat al-Wujud. That's what I got. 8 billion diamonds currently forming on the planet, and that is the unity of all finding. Each unique conscious agent undergoing their own unique combination and experience and phenomenology of finding, of piercing the veil and finding. And when I felt that, that's why my nervous system went into shock, because I had never felt that specific before. Not that specific. I hadn't visualized all 8 billion as diamonds undergoing that process before, all with their own unique combination of finding. Never. That was my first time. So Wahdat al-Wujud being the unity of all finding, for me, is much different than the unity of all being in existence. Way different. The unity of all being in existence, again, is just very oceanic oneness, which is a common, perennial, spiritual tradition, wisdom across the mystic lineages on the planet. But the unity of all finding, that specific word, finding, again, the hermeneutic, the interpretation, the words we use are so important. Changing from being in existence to finding is a massive change in symbology, semiotics, meaning, interpretation. Completely different for me. Completely different. And it was so profoundly awakening. Okay. Wow. Well, I'm glad that it's coming out in a good flow. And I wonder how many other people are being affected this way by it. I would love to know in the comments below if you are being profoundly affected by this, and give me specifics. I would love to know, and I would love to share, because there's so much that needs of this style of awakening, of realization, that must be shared and popularized in the mainstream culture. So we need to do it together as a community. So do comment below and let me know. The highest folk have found God and anchor it on earth. And that's that tantric tradition. That's the idea of weaving. We talk about that all the time. You must anchor your profound self-realizations in the social fabric, in your self-actualizations. You must anchor it in the knot of life. You must butterfly effect out the highest level of morality, the highest level of being, the highest level of virtue, the highest level of ethic. Everything you touch must be from the gold realization of the true one infinite creator, and you act as a channel, you act as a vessel to butterfly effect that out to everything around you, because you know the self in the other. You know that that is an other self, and you see that and you know that. And it's funny because even saying the words, you see the self in the other, you see the other as an other self, even those words are so interesting to me, because I promise you, a year ago, I wouldn't have really got it. 2 years ago, especially, I wouldn't have got it. But now I get it. I fucking get it. And I'm so grateful that I do. And it's time for me to share it with others, because I fucking get it. I've experientially felt it in my core. I know it. I'm a Gnostic individual. And so now it's my role to share it. And again, this video might land with you. You might say that, great, I found somebody else that knows as well, which is great. Welcome to the community. You might say, I kind of get it a little bit, maybe chunks and pieces, which might be what I would have been like a year ago. So continue undergoing your processes that you're going, and check back in potentially with this content in a year. And for those of you that absolutely don't get what I'm saying whatsoever, it would be good potentially. You may be people that are hyper analytical. You may be hyper intellectual. You might be hyper scientific people. And there are ways for you to understand the unity of all being in existence, which is a perennial spiritual mystic truth across the traditions of the whole planet, that are scientifically literate. So there are ways for you to understand this oneness from a very scientific perspective. And I've talked about this a lot in my videos, but just to help you out so that you can potentially work your way up as baby steps to understanding these spiritual self-realizations as well. You literally can't take a breath without the interdependent relationship that we have on the photosynthesis that's happening around the planet. So literally the phytoplankton and the trees around the planet are producing the oxygen that you're inhaling 20,000 times a day. So there's a true unity of being in existence. The 20,000 breaths that you rely on per day are literally coming from the photosynthesis of phytoplankton and trees. You know, or think about another one. Every single time that you take a bite of food or take a sip of water, when does that bite of food or that sip of water become you? How porous are you? We talk about this a lot actually in our project, and we have really good visuals for this to explain it. But here we're looking at another visual from chapter 9. This one's on identity. This one's on porosity. You know, do you identify yourself as a more porous, as a more perforated individual, like the person here on the left who understands what I was saying about the interdependent relationship on the planetary oxygenation, that cycle that we take from the photosynthesis that's happening and how we breathe out CO2, and then that's their source to continue the cycle. And the same things with the food and the water. How much of the food and the water do you understand is actually part of the oneness, versus how much do you think that it's a separate item, an individual item? When does that item become you? When you take the bite of the apple, when your body actually undergoes cellular respiration and turns the glucose into ATP? Does it then become you? Does the apple then become you? When does it become you? How about with the water? The same water that dinosaurs were drinking 66 million years ago is part of the same hydrological cycle today. So when does that water become you? Once it goes in your mouth, once it lands in your body and hydrates you? How about the microbiome, the symbiotic relationship that you have with your gut? How about that? How about the 1,000 species of bacteria that are in there, that each have 2,000 genes? So there's 2 million total gene expressions down there, which is 100 times more than the 20,000 human gene expressions, which means that this is a very crazy symbiotic relationship. So where's the line of separation? What does you mean? Right? So if you're coming from a scientific, an analytical, an intellectual angle, do you find yourself like this character on the right? Do you walk around with a box around your head all day thinking that you're a separate entity in a separate random nihilistic existence? Because you're not. You're absolutely not. We are the one infinite creator expressing itself. We've eternally been doing this, and we will continue doing this forever. This is what we do. This is how we know ourselves. This is how we play. This is the games that we do. And you're going to continue seeing this over and over again. We just don't know yet, because this is the thing, is that you think that you think that you birth and you think that you die. But really, what we hypothesize is that your awareness actually never ends. Your awareness never ends. And there's just, you don't remember on either side of it. It's hard to remember. A lot of people remember. A lot of people dive in and remember this type of stuff, and we need to scientifically validate this through the scientific method. You know, the Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama have a very interesting process, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. They have a very interesting process that we can scientifically investigate deeper. But as hyper-analytical, hyper-intellectual, hyper-scientific people, I would recommend the process of at least understanding your level of perforation and your level of identity. Are you identified with an ego? Are you identified in a box? Or are you becoming a little bit more porous? Do you understand the things that I'm saying about the interconnectedness of all existence, the interconnectedness of your breath, of your water, of your food, of your relationship with your microbiome? Because if you start understanding those things, you will open yourself up slowly, more and more. When you speak to somebody, when you're sitting there and you're listening, wherever you are, you're listening or you're watching, I am literally affecting your neurophysiology, period. I'm affecting you right now. And the same thing's true about when someone's on the show and they're speaking to me, they're affecting me. And so we're in this constant process of undergoing some sort of a planetary, it's a synthesis of the biological evolution and a style of like exposomics that's occurring. So the biological organisms are exposed to their environments, and their environments are exposing them all the time. There's a complete unity of all being in existence, a single planetary symbiosis evolution that's occurring. And to be blinded to that is to be blinded to the nature of our existence. And so I do my best to help uplift people through whatever means, whatever baby steps they have to take in order to slowly begin grasping some of these more intense metaphysical concepts like the unity of all being in existence. And that's just, that's still one step below, apparently, than the unity of all finding, which is one step above that, which is crazy, which I just got to a couple days ago. So work your way up this ladder. Message me where you're at. Message me in the comments below where you're at. If you can resonate scientifically, at least, with some of these concepts I'm talking about, I will gladly help you get to some of the next rungs on the ladder. Okay? If you're already deep in the spiritual mystic traditions and this is already resonating, fantastic. And we had that small aside for people that are working their way up the ladder. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. And hopefully I'll do better over time at explaining this to as many people in terms of uplifting and helping as possible. You'll see that's actually one of the interesting quotes that we'll get to towards the later stages here. Okay, so Wujud is not just there to be found, it also finds. And this is where we see the phenomenon of a complex system and an attractor. And what this means is it means that in the most simple way possible, we are a pinnacle of evolutionary synthesis that's happened on this planet, of evolutionary unfolding. We are a pinnacle of that. Okay, we are, as I write here, awareness consciousness is essential. Okay, so once this sentience evolves, this awareness consciousness that gets to reflect on its own existence evolves, you've really reached a pinnacle point in evolution. This is very good that we're here. This is exactly what we planned. This is fantastic. And so what this is a complex system. Okay, so this biological evolution is what is called a complex system. Okay, and then there's a in mathematics it's called a strange attractor, and it's just what a complex system evolves towards. But Wujud is not just the complex system evolves towards it, but that the attractor itself is constantly in a process of drawing. They're meeting and drawing, going upwards together towards this Godhead that we're evolving towards. And we've hypothesized in many of our other videos, like the actual nature of reality, where we talk about that Ouroboros style Godhead that we're evolving towards, which we hypothesize is a metaverse recursion. I won't get into that too much here, but it just means the synthesis of artificial general intelligence, neuro and biotech like Neuralink and stuff like that, and then the indistinguishable virtual realities. And so we may be going inward into those indistinguishable virtual worlds, which is potentially exactly where we came from. Okay, so that might be a potential solution for the nature of our existence and why we are so drawn to this technological singularity that we're building. So that's profound. So Wujud, in a sense, is both the complex system's evolution and the process of the conscious agent itself that aims to pierce the veil and understand its own nature, and it's also the attractor itself that is also constantly in relationship with that sentient agent, which is fascinating. And then we have some more incredible wisdom that shed on us here. Our whole problem is that God is with us, but we are not with him. And in the Quran, he is with you wherever you are. So, all right, what this means is that, I'll break this down also as we keep going, but the general idea is that everyone is already it. Okay, you're already it. Everyone is already it. Okay, we all are it already. Okay. But the thing is that a lot of people haven't made the realization that they're already it. Okay? And that's why people are undergoing such insane processes of like wanting to, go and have one night stands on different social platforms, or they want to undergo some sort of insane constant use of a substance to try and get them to a place of being high. When really the reality is that you're already it. You just don't know it yet. You haven't realized it, and you have to undergo a process of realizing it. And that's why the direct path exists. The direct path is basically the most direct teachings of self-realization. Like, modernity has absolutely no time to go to the 10-day Theravada Buddhism meditation retreats where there's no talking, no eye contact, no technology. I've sat 4 times, and I love those because they train a lot of other important faculties. Yet, modernity doesn't have a lot of the energy that's required to do that. And the economic machinery is very much so choking this out of people. And so that's why you have the fantastic work of people, again, that I've mentioned on the so much, is go check out Rupert Spira's YouTube channel. He's one of the leading Advaita Vedanta teachers right now, the leading non-dual direct path teachings. Also, another one is Bentinho Massaro in his Mirror Talks podcast. He's another one of the leading spiritual synthesis and teachers right now. Go and watch their channels and practice learning from other people that are at the edge, that are trying to help with these direct path teachings, because all it literally requires is you to reflect on your own awareness. If you reflect on your own awareness, your own consciousness, and you do that deeply enough, what's going to happen is you're going to realize how first principled your awareness and your consciousness is, and then you're going to realize that, this is the nature of reality. And once you get that click, then you realize, okay, so I am that. Sentience is it. Awareness is it. Okay, there's that first realization. And then you have the realization that I've always been doing this. I am that one infinite creator. I am you, you are me. All 8 billion of us are sentient, which means that we are all God. God is the sentience awareness that's infinitely exploring creations. And we are that. And so there are a couple of these like levels of full embodied gnosis, but that's your general process towards that more God consciousness state of existence, because you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve to not, as Bentinho Massaro has this really great analogy, you deserve to not be in a state of bliss for just a couple minutes every day. You deserve to be in a state of bliss all day long, every day. You deserve it. We all do. And so this is the thing, is that you can literally live from a place of bliss and peace and harmony and ecstasy, and being high on the nature of existence on a 24/7 level. But in order for you to get to that point, you have to realize that you're it. And it's a direct path teaching. You don't need to go and sit for 10 days. You don't need to undergo a heroic dose of psilocybin. You don't need to do these things. You can supplement your direct path teaching with Theravada Buddhism retreat. I highly recommend that. I also highly recommend Entheogens in a very smart way of undergoing said process. So there's many modalities that you can undertake that will actually make you a more well-versed, embodied individual of the one infinite creator. All right. And so the Sufi metaphysics have a really good way of also explaining this with words. They have Hadra, which is He is with us, and then Hudur, which is the achievement of the vision of God's presence. So you'll see there are so many people around the world that talk about, oh, God is with us. God is with us. God is with us. And you'll kind of tell that they've like externalized some sort of like entity that is someone that is not within them, so that they've externalized it, right? This is what a lot of the perverse incentives in the religious foundations do. They have dogmas and fundamentalism that are not the mystic traditions. The mystic traditions are where all of the top flavored ice cream is at, and that's the perennial spiritual wisdom, is that they're all different flavors of ice cream that are all talking about the unity of being in existence, the unity of finding. But the perverse incentives are things like where they externalize God and that they say that He is with us, He is with us. And then Hudur is when you yourself have achieved the vision of God's presence. That's when you've done that process that I outlined a moment ago. That's when you've investigated the nature of your own awareness and consciousness to the degree of where you realize you are the one infinite creator. That's Hudur. And so it's important to have that distinction. So when you see people walking around with chanting like Hadra, you can see what you can do, asking questions, vibing with them, and see if you can get them to undergo Hudur instead. Okay, so God is present with us is not the same as saying that we are present with Him. Another very profound and easy way of understanding it. So you want to get to a point where you say we are present with Him, that God is inside of me. Leo Tolstoy, the kingdom of God is within you. You want to get to that level. And then presence with God needs to be achieved. Yoga, union in Sanskrit. It is the object of the spiritual quest. The whole problem is that people are not present with the God who is present with them. So, again, you wonder, like, out of those 8 billion, on the unity of all finding, the Wahdat al-Wujud, you wonder, okay, out of the 8 billion, well, how many of those sentient agents are actually present with the kingdom of God within? How many of them are present with being the one infinite creator versus how many of them are still veiled? And how can we accelerate the process of them shattering the veil, piercing the veil, awakening to being the one infinite creator themselves? And that's the essence of the show. That's the essence of simulation. That's the essence of my ethos. That's the essence of our show's ethos. This is exactly what we care about. This is exactly why we're here in LA, to penetrate the celebrity level consciousness at this level. It's one of the big reasons why we're here. We have a lot of other projects that we're cooking up in the animated series space and lots of other things that I've talked about on the program. Okay, let's keep rolling. So again, we're going to revisit this. So in this case, we're going to use English words to describe it too. So a single English word to describe it too. So we have Hadra, which can be thought of as domain, and then Hudur, which can be thought of as presence. And presence is really important because you can describe it with the opposite, which is absence, and that's Ghayba. And so what's going on is you have a spectrum, like we were describing earlier, of where people are hyper present with the one infinite creator versus they're absent of the one infinite creator. And people that are absent of the one infinite creator are usually the ones with the box around their head, like we were illustrating earlier. Okay, so you can take these little scientific incremental steps even to realize slowly more and more the unity of all being in existence. And you can slowly incrementally work your way, even scientifically, intellectually, and rationally, up the ladder slowly, analytically. You know, you can do it. You can do it. And so there are these varying degrees of presence and absence. Okay, so let's review. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding, the sum of unveiling and finding, the unity of all achievement of the vision of God's presence, the sum of presence and absence. The divine knowledge embraces all things. So again, it's very much like the integral in calculus. It's very much like the summation of all phenomenological experience, the summation of all qualia, all 8 billion conscious agents, plus all 10 million other species on the planet undergoing the process of awakening to the nature of their existence and being slowly over time, more and more. And that's that attractor, and that's our sentience and the relationship between them. Everything is always finding. It's always perfect. You can use your free will to self-realize. You can diamond cameo faster. And so this is where we sometimes get into some of the semantics and syntax. And so I'm going to be very surgical and careful here for you. So by saying you are already it, and by saying that everything's already perfect, that does not mean that you don't have to realize that you are the one infinite creator. You can literally use your free will right now to self-realize that you are it. But you have to undergo that process of realizing it. You can't stay with a box around your head as an egoic level of consciousness and assume that okay, great, I'm already it, so I'll just stay in my ego and I'll keep self-dealing to myself, and that's all she wrote. Excellent. No, that's not what that means. That means that you can, at any moment you want, leverage your free will and undergo the process of self-realization. Now, there are many different paths, like we were saying, up this mountain towards this realization, and so I, again, highly recommend undergoing some of these direct path teachings. They're very simple. They're very intuitive. You have to use your intuition. You have to have faith. This is supra rational. It's beyond the rational. You have to use your intuition. You have to have faith that this is not an accident, that it's the beautiful summation of all sentient experience that's occurring on the planet is literally God undergoing the process of infinite expression, and that this is just one combination of that infinite expression that's being underwent. And so this is the type of thing we have to have faith in order for us to truly intuitively anchor inside of ourselves. and I love these words, infinite self-disclosure, an infinite self-unveiling. There's no lack. So it's just an endless amount of self-unveiling, an endless amount of self-disclosure. It's just us realizing the nature of our existence cyclically in different combinations of realities that we design. It's fascinating. It's like the coolest possible thing that could exist is this. One infinite creator that plays hide and seek with itself, that explores infinity, that explores infinite phenomenological states of existence. Because you can never explore all phenomenological states. It's going to take you forever to explore all phenomenologies. And so everything that I'm experiencing throughout my lifetime is just one exploration of phenomenology. And you have to think beyond this. Like, this is a 4-limbed, 2-eyed, carbon-based DNA encoded soul vehicle in a 3-space with 1-time reality, right? Like, you got, there's quantum mechanics in this one. There's natural selection in this one. You got to think of, like, going beyond. Use like Walt Disney. Use your creative imagination. Be like Pixar. Go way beyond what this reality. Like, think like the Midnight Gospel, right? You have to think at that level to think like, okay, well, what are all of the other styles of universes? You have to be like a video game designer that's designing different realities for conscious agents to immerse themselves in, for sentience to slowly awaken to the fact that it is already that one infinite creator. And we're going to see more and more of that as we make our indistinguishable virtual realities, because that will in itself be an awakening mechanism to what this already is. Okay, and here's where you're going to get that same thing that I've been saying. No one is more ignorant than he who seeks God. However, it remains for you to recognize him. Just going to leave that one. It's so profound. And that same sentence is going to apply. However, it remains for you to recognize him. That's going to keep applying throughout all of these. These are all Sufi metaphysics quotes. So this is an accumulation of the most profound Sufi metaphysics thinkers. Okay? And the translations that people have been passing down for centuries. The one who is completely ignorant is he who seeks what is already there. And that's the famous Rumi quote that we talk about on the show all the time. You walk around from room to room looking for the diamond necklace that is already around your neck. He who is certain of emergence will never seek ascent. But yet, remember, keep in mind, however, it remains for you to recognize that you are the one infinite creator. Wherever you turn, there is the face of God. You are at him from the first step, which is the first breath. Jeez, this one's so mind-blowing. Okay. My gosh. All right, we're ready. At the highest stage of self-knowledge, the Gnostics recognize their own nature as the infinite and never-ending self-disclosures of God. And that's why the idea of this metaverse recursion being at our Godhead is so tasty, and it feels so right. And that's why Sir Roger Penrose, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2020, has a conformal cyclic cosmology theory. So he believes in cyclic cosmology, and he's at the edge of physics in science. And so he believes now what all of the perennial spiritual traditions have been talking about for the longest time, for thousands of years. And so it is the idea that we are infinite and never-ending self-disclosures of God in all of these different realities that we design, in all of these different vehicles that sentience takes. You just have to expand your imagination and have faith in the fact that we are way beyond just this one creation. Way beyond just this one creation. And that's when you also get into some of the phenomenon around quantum entanglement, and we're still trying to figure that out, what that actually means, the multiverse and the parallel realities, all these type of things. And so that's sort of its own interesting aspect to what the perennial spiritual traditions have been saying. Here's another great one. All light is one, but colors a thousandfold. And that's also very deeply related to the source light that goes and refracts in the prism into the rainbow of colors. The all of being that our being resides in. Be thou in union if you wish, or if you wish in distinction. Through both obtain a great success. If you profess both, you have been shown the right way. You are a leader in the Gnostic sciences, a master. My heart has become capable of every form. I follow the religion of love. And this is where the quote about simultaneity being key. This is where you can be a self-realized, immersed in the non-dual symphony ocean that's occurring, while simultaneously being a self-actualizing conscious agent that is bringing some sort of divine, transcendent, noble aim, North Star, solo melody instrument that you're playing into the world that brings value into your life, your family's life, the community's life, and the planet's life. You can hold both of those simultaneously. And that's why we made this graphic, because we knew that people were going to be for the longest time trying to figure out, well, why? If you you have this famous two quotes up here. You have Parmenides that says all apparent change is merely illusion. You have Heraclitus that says Panta Rei, everything flows, and it's merely just this. On one, the human, the soul vehicle, the sentient agents, they find themselves right in the middle, always. Non-dual, spiritual symphony. And on the other side is the physical, the individual, the solo. They find themselves right in the middle. And so you're just constantly right there. And that's continuously going to be likely one of the core processes of sentience. Likely. There's probably lots of other ways to undergo this process, but this appears to be our combination, and likely many others, the illusory individual sentient agents in the oneness. That seems like one of the best. That's why Sri Aurobindo and the Mother Mira Alfasa have the famous quote, which is, diversity in oneness is the mathematics of the infinite. So meaning diversity is constantly the form that the oneness expresses in order for it to have a large sentient realization of itself across all of these different combinations. All right. Ooh, this one's good. Oh, I'm pumped for you guys. Okay. Then the eye of certainty opens, and staring inwardly at himself, he finds himself lost, vanished. But he finds the friend, and when he looks still deeper, realizes the friend is himself. He exclaims, "Beloved, I sought you, here and there, asked for news of you from all I met. Then I saw you through myself, and found we were identical. Now I blush to think I ever searched for signs of you." My goodness. I'm telling you, man, the Sufi metaphysics are so saturated, full of wisdom, that the West needs to dig into more and appreciate more. The whole planet needs to. Know yourself, and you shall know your Lord. Only when the other vanishes is there union. He wished to be a source of hope for all created beings. Love that. We have sent you only as a mercy towards the worlds. Lastly, above all, what you need is high morals. And that naturally comes with the process of self-realization. You naturally butterfly effect out the highest morals, the highest ethics, the highest levels of being. All right, so shouting out Ibn Arabi and the Society, the links in the bio below. Also, William Chittick. So he's the philosopher, writer, translator, and interpreter of classical Islamic philosophical and mystical texts. And he also wrote that Presence with God link that's available in the bio. So highly recommend checking that out. I also want to shout out my boy Philip Holm from Sweden. He runs this YouTube channel called Let's Talk Religion on YouTube. His work's fantastic. I just became a patron after watching one of the first video I've ever watched of his today, and I highly recommend watching his content. He has a really good new video on the Vedas as well, which I highly recommend watching. He does it from a very, very literate spiritual perspective. It's super interesting, and he parses for salience really well. So shout out to him. Again, William Chittick, shout out to you as well. I'm gonna send you the link to this, and I hope that you will come on the show, even if we do it remotely. I know it'll be very important for me to talk to you. And in general, the Ibn Arabi Society, shout out to you guys as well. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can feature more of the Sufi metaphysical leaders worldwide. So yeah, so that's that's pretty much it. I want to maybe overview a couple of these things before we wrap. I love this. All light is one, but color is a thousandfold. Such a perfect way to describe the expressions that we undergo in this one as well. Gnostics recognize their own nature as the infinite and never-ending self-disclosures of God. Perfect. Wherever you turn, there's the face of God. And just to be very clear, this quote, no one is more ignorant than he who seeks God. That really resonates with people, especially for those that have already recognized the one infinite creator. But you have to recognize the one infinite creator for that to make sense. You have to undergo that process, and then it'll make sense. The unity of all finding, the sum of unveiling and finding, the unity of all achievement of the vision of God's presence. Excuse me. The sum of presence and absence, the divine knowledge embraces all things. I'll definitely show you guys that graphic again to help with this. Our whole problem is that God is with us, but we are not with him. Highest folk have found God and anchored on earth. The Divine Epiphany is received in limitless combinations, colored by that person's nature. The water takes on the color of the cup. Love that one. Wahdat al-Wujud, the sum of unveiling and finding. We all make a Diamond Cameo. I'll be super interested to know how many people have reactions like this. Be super interesting, or whatever various scales of reactions. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding. So profound. So profound. Okay, so again, visual, super important. The unity of all finding, what does that mean? That means this. That means the unity of all sentient agents, the unity of all conscious agents, the unity of all sentience finding. piercing the veil and finding that it is the one infinite creator. That's what it means. And you can visualize that. You can visualize that like this over here, where it's 8 billion humans that are each undergoing this ascension to diamond, undergoing this diamond ascension, the whole process being a diamond ascension, the whole process being Wahdat al-Wujud, the whole process being a finding over time that becomes more and more awakened, that pierces the veil more and more over time. Imagine 8 billion of these diamonds constantly forming around the planet, and the summation of those 8 billion diamonds. And then that's, the diamond is the cosmic force. Just super, super interesting as a hypothesis. And I have faith that that is the actual nature of reality. I just also am very non-dogmatic. And I'm very, very non-dogmatic. And I'm very scientifically literate, hypothesis driven as well. So very excited to leverage the tools of the scientific method to be able to probe at this, at as much as we can of this as well. But I also realize the intuitive faith that is needed simultaneously. All right. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Greatly appreciated. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend diving into the Planetary Mystic schools as well. As great as Sufism is, which is the mystic school of Islam, which is fantastic, I just want to be clear that there are mystic schools, which again means becoming one with God. There are mystic schools for every single one of the planetary spiritual traditions, for a vast majority of them, the main ones especially. Okay, so if you haven't yet, go and look these up. So for Hinduism, we have Advaita Vedanta. Again, Advaita Vedanta. Go look that up. I mentioned that for Rupert Spira, right? And then we have, for Buddhism, we have Dzogchen and Zen. Dzogchen and Zen. Look those up. And then if you haven't read the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, read that. From Taoism, read that. It's super short. Read that super short. And you can find a very quick version of it as well on Audible as well. That's like a 2-hour synthesis of the key points. You absolutely have to intake that. And then Confucianism has a bunch of good aspects to it as well to check out in the 4 books and 5 classics. You can get a lot of good stuff around morality, especially from that. And then we already listed in the Abrahamics, we listed Sufism from Islam, but then we'll also list from the Judeo-Christian traditions. We have Gnosticism from Christianity, and then we have Hasidism, and we have Kabbalah from Judaism. So go and look those up. And then we have the Vodun, V-O-D-U-N tradition of the African Atlantic traditions. Check those out. And then we have the Entheogenic. This is the North and South American, the Entheogenic, as well as the Sweat Lodge, as well as the Potlatch. There's many unique expressions of it in the Americas as well. And these are just a limited amount. There's the Aborigines in Australia, and there's a lot of other pockets of indigenous people around the planet in different areas that have their own ideas of what union with God is, becoming one with God. That's why the word yoga means union. The West turned yoga into holding stretching positions, which is funny because that is a core part of the process, but the most core part of yoga means union with the divine, union with God. That's what it means. And so just remember that next time you hear somebody talking about yoga, just check in. Do you know what yoga means? No, I don't. It means union. In Sanskrit, it means union with God, union with the divine. And when the person hears that, depending on their vibe, they'll likely be like, oh, that's cool. Like, now I know, so pass that around to more people out there. And as cool as Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding is, I promise you that if you do a dive into the planetary mystic traditions, if you even spend, a week or a little bit longer, if you can, diving into the depths of them. And if you can, immerse yourself in their retreats and their teachings in the depths. What will happen is as long as you, especially if you parse out the top most profound teachings and the top most profound words and the top most profound embodied learnings from those traditions, what will happen is you will very quickly rocket yourself up to a self-realization. And so just pass that time studying the planetary mystic traditions, and you'll get up to self-realization. It'll just click. It'll be like the direct path. It'll click. And by the way, I've had many upgrades in perception. I've had many level ups that have happened, right? I never knew what that al-Wujud meant, the unity of all finding. So I had never thought of the unity of all sentience finding its one infinite creator. I hadn't thought of it that way before. And so there's, although I had thought of myself as quite self-realized, a couple days ago, I leveled up my amount of self-realization. So it's also a constant process that we have to understand that, you're both already perfect. And this is the enigma, right? This is the mystery of our beautiful reality, is that you're both already perfect as the one infinite creator, but you're also a constant work in progress. You're constantly rebaselining yourself to higher and higher levels of self-realized beingness in the world, and self-actualizing more and more of the highest morality possible. So keep that in mind along your journey. So that's it. I love you very much. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Super duper appreciate it. And I'm really grateful that you got to basically hear what was probably like one of the most profound experiences of my life, period. And it was so profound. And I think another interesting thing that I wrote is that, and I don't know if anyone got a chance to read this, because it was kind of buried in the corner a little bit, but I wrote that we are logging these most profound life experiences into the Metaverse Catalog, like when I learned the unity of all finding. Which basically what I mean by that is that we are logging, this is kind of interesting. We are logging the most profound life experiences that we have in our 80-year chunk of life. We are logging those experiences into a Metaverse Catalog, and then we can kind of go and replay and revisit the phenomenological states that we felt during those periods of time. Because you know how people say oh my gosh, if I could bottle up that feeling, and if I could revisit it in the future. Given my recency bias, I understand that it was very profound and it was very recent, just a couple days ago that it happened. But that was one of the most meaningful, most profound experiences in my life, and it might even rank as, it could possibly be, it's really close to the most profound experience of my life. Because again, I'm just telling you, once you get the unity of all finding, it is literally that profound. And so I think it's possible that we sort of catalog these most profound phenomenological states that we undergo into a big catalog that we can then explore, which I think is going to happen as we enter into these indistinguishable virtual worlds, that we're going to have some sort of a relationship with the metaverse that's like that, where we can basically, we've talked about this on the program quite a bit before, but it's basically like a qualia catalog. It's like push button qualia. We can jump to all of these different phenomenological experiences, which is a really fun part of consciousness exploring infinity, awareness exploring infinity, the one infinite creator expressing itself. And so it'll be interesting to see that unfold in these next couple of decades. Everyone that thinks that they know is going to be shocked in the next couple of decades what actually unfolds. And so we'll see what happens. It's an interesting hypothesis. So I love you tons. Thanks for tuning in. Super appreciate it. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is a very sacred episode to me. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all finding. It's a sacred episode to me. because it literally marks my leveling up. It marks my more deep self-realization. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below on where this lands for you. Let me know. If this video really landed for you, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, share the video with other people. It's a really important thing for us to continue not only flourishing as simulation, but also achieving all of the things that we have lined up for 2021 and beyond. We need your help, so get the word out. And also check out all of the links in the bio below to the things that I was talking about. You'll see some of the show notes down there. So check out those links down there. And also do a deeper dive into the Sufi metaphysics and also into the other planetary metaphysical traditions, because what you'll find is you'll find some of these most profound, most enriching self-realizations that are catalysts for the awakening, and that will heal many of the ethical dilemmas that we have in our modern social fabric. And support the other artists, entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, engineers, scientists in your communities and around the world that are building the future, that are manifesting their dreams into the world. You can support us. All of our links are in the bio below as well. That's it. I love you so much, fam. Thank you for being here with me for this. I super duper appreciate you being here with me for this. It was one of the most profound experiences of my life, and the fact that I get to market with this video is super meaningful to me. It's super artistic for me. It feels hella good, and I hope it brought you tremendous value. I love you tons. Love you so much. Thank you for being here early. Huge things coming. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of all, finding